Hello everybody, welcome to the Redmen TV. My name is Dan Claw. I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by friend of the show, friend of me, Natasha Dowie. Tash, my friend, how are you doing? You good?
Very good, thank you. Yeah, recovered after you beating me this morning at Paddle. Look, I know you were going to get it in at some point.
I was not going to bring it up. I was not going to bring it up. Good game though, wasn't it?
It was a good game. It was a good game, but you know me, I'm a bad loser, so it's taken me till about walking through the store to get over it.
I was worried you were going to show up, to be honest with you, after the game.
That did cross my mind, I'm not going to lie.
Quick text straight on the way home. Yeah, not coming this afternoon. Never messaged me again. No, thanks for coming in, genuinely. Chris was on fire this morning.
He was.
Yeah, I wasn't anything to do with our victory. I was just there. Right, speaking of hopefully victories to come, we're going to do quite an all-encompassing pre-season season preview, I should say, because I think you're the perfect person for this job, actually, Tash, which is why you're here, because you've been across Liverpool men's side of it all summer, really, and you're in a good place to talk about what that looks like and what that feels like and potentially what that could become. And likewise, obviously, with your incredible career in the women's side of the game and your knowledge of that area as well, and watching the pre-season, I'm sure, I think you are the perfect person for this job.
Thank
so let's
you.
do it, shall we?
Excited.
Yeah, let's do the men's first and foremost. Pre-season wise, you were out on tour with myself. You've obviously seen the games at Anfield. I think it is extensively basically just fitness. It's getting up to speed, all that stuff. But aside from that, how do you feel the lads have adapted? How do you feel in terms of the mood in the group? Because you were very close to it, you were very much around it. Do you feel like we are in a relatively good place?
I would say so. I think being around the pre-season tour, there was a lot of youngsters getting opportunities. I would have loved to have seen maybe some of our more senior players being there, but also I think with the World Cup, it did disturb pre-season slightly. But I always try and have a bit more of a positive outlook on things with regards to the amount of youngsters getting those opportunities, gelling, being involved in that kind of intense environment. I think from speaking to a lot of the lads, the double sessions, I was lucky enough to be pitch side for a lot of those sessions, and the intensity was really high. You know, as a player, I looked at it and thought I would love to be involved in those sessions. I think it is going to take time, and I think probably as fans, you know, we want it to happen overnight. But I think when you actually look at our squad, players having been injured, players that have been away at the World Cup, actually together as a starting 11, as a squad, how many games have we had? Probably only really the Como games, and you know, even that players were getting rotated in and out. But overall, I felt pre-season was really positive. I think, you know, the fan base over in America was massive. I think the games, you saw signs of what was to come, and absolutely a bit more positive, high pressing, a little bit more direct. But for me, it's more a case of your Kumasses, those kind of players, you know, your Trey Naonis, Munoz, you know, those players that have actually been given opportunity but grabbed it with both hands. And I think a lot of people maybe thought those players would get loaned out this season, but from rumours that potentially they might be sticking around, and I think that's great. Yeah,
100%, particularly in the case of Lewis Kumas. I'm a big Lewis Kumas fan, really, full stop. But I did not envisage a world where he would be coming on at St James's Park, for example. I thought he would be out on loan by now.
And having a big impact, by the way.
I thought he was impressive when he came on as well, absolutely. And we should say, obviously, we are recording this at a time of post-Newcastle, but pre-transfer window deadline passing. So this conversation will evolve and will change and will be made to look a little bit foolish, potentially, by the time the transfer window's over. But that's fine. On that one game that we've seen, competitive-wise, Tash, I was, like you, really optimistic, really hopeful. I think we had seen signs of Iriola's imprint and identity on the team, certainly in the pre-season games. I wasn't overly disappointed because it is only one game. But was there a little bit of you that was a little bit underwhelmed by what we saw then on Sunday?
Yeah, I think so, because I think, again, as Liverpool former player and as a fan, we always expect to win, don't we? We've been spoiled over the years. I think that when you look at the bigger picture again, I think for me, I'm always thinking when this clicks, it is going to be frightening. And again, it has to start clicking sooner rather than later. But when an Isak and a Wirtz click, that is a frightening prospect. And it will have to happen sooner rather than later. That hasn't happened yet. And I'm sure as players, they're super frustrated. You know, I've been a player myself. When you have the pressure of what Isak has with how he did come to the club, the money that he's earning, he is our number 9, he's Liverpool's number 9. That's enough pressure as it is, full stop. he wants to be hitting the ground running as soon as he possibly can. I know that fully well, and he hasn't yet, and I think, again, going away to his old club, he would have loved nothing more than to have had a better performance than what he showed, but it didn't happen. And I think that's where, as fans, you have to stick behind the players, because that's a tough period to go through. I think for me as well, the centre halves, had strong gains, but again, not ideal that you're having to swap a centre half because of probably fitness. You got to probably look at that situation. I think then potentially the midfield situation with maybe Wirtz not hitting the ground running, then you're having to bring on a McAllister. So for me, it's still not settled, and that will come as the season develops. I think, the more we play together, the better fitness, the more intense we're going to become. I think Iraola will get his kind of starting 11. Who is that going to be? Rio's still so young. He's starting in the Premier League. Was that the case? Was that seen? Munoz, I thought, had a real positive impact. I think the fullbacks, we love them for what they can bring, which is the going forward, but also probably defensively. That's something they need to work on. I think the thing that maybe not disappointed me, because players always want to do well, I think the end product at times let us down the other day. I think when you look at an Isak, and if we are going to be ultra critical, I didn't think he maybe got the service he needed. He had one opportunity, maybe two actually, with the header and the cutback, that I think he should do better. But there were times where we got into really good situations and the ball wasn't good enough. So I think, you've got to look at bigger picture. If we're wanting this number 9 to score goals, we have to give him the service. And again, that will come with these players playing together. I think at Liverpool Football Club, these players are under more pressure than what they've been at other clubs. So everyone that's come to Liverpool, they're taking a step up in their career. So they're probably feeling that as well. Disappointing year last year. They want nothing more than to hit the ground running and to start performing well. So I just hope that comes. But if you're telling me you're going away to St James's Park, that's not an easy game so you take a point, you absolutely would, and then you build on that.
Yeah, I agree. And you're absolutely spot on, and we all need, I'm guilty of it myself, being a bit reactionary to what happened at the weekend. I think it's just an extension of last season, how disappointed we were by that. And it just looked a bit too much like last season to me. There was elements of it that weren't that. It was a bit more fast-paced, a bit more pressing, a bit more intensity and desire. But yeah, there was just too many shades of, I watched that for 12 months, you know what I mean? And hopefully that can be sort of wheeled out of us, because I don't want to see that again. Just on the manager, we spoke off air about how he seems to get it, really, and how he sort of immersed himself in Liverpool beyond just on the pitch and the first team matters, which I really like. I'm a fan of, absolutely. Just in terms of your take on him so far, not so much in terms of his playing style or what he's brought in terms of the football side of it, but just him as a human being. You think there's a vibe there? Absolutely,
and I think that every manager I've enjoyed, so Jurgen, Arne, Iraola, but for me, I get naturally drawn to people with big personalities. I'm a big personality myself. I love to talk, and I think when I've played myself, I've been drawn to those managers that have that enthusiasm. So I automatically, Jurgen, that was my type of manager. And I see glimpses more like that with Iraola. I think that when I watched the training, he was very hands-on. He was very vocal, full of that enthusiasm, which I love. I think that when we were lucky enough to fly back with them on the plane, and I had a good conversation with him when he was doing all his notes. And for me, he's always got a smile on his face. And I like that. And I know it's early doors.
It could change.
Yeah, it could change. But for me, he just always seems to, he's honest. And I think I quite like that. Even after the game against Newcastle, he didn't shy away from, he wasn't happy. It could have been better. And I respect that before the game, he would have liked a different result. He saw signs which he was happy with, but he didn't stand there and say, oh, well, we dominated the game. The stats showed this. The XG showed this. We should have won the game. No, he didn't pretend as if it was okay. And I think, if anything, that honesty is what I like. And I think that deep down, his kind of philosophy, even when he first signed, when he was talking about earning the right to become, one of us, I like that a lot, because I think he understands just how important the fans are to this football club.
100%, yeah. And he seems to get the magnitude of the job that he's walked into as well, which is huge. And you referenced it a minute ago yourself in terms of the pressure and the expectations that come with being part of the Liverpool Football Club to go up a notch or two. And he's never experienced anything like that before, really. So he'll soon discover exactly what it means to be Liverpool manager, I'm sure. On the topic of expectations, Tash, this is a more difficult question because, listen, we'd all love to sit here and say win everything. Like the league, the Champions League, the cup, cups, but do you have any for this season? Do you think there is sort of a minimum requirement for what means and matches a Liverpool season this time around?
I mean, it's so hard, isn't it? Because, again, as a fan and as a player, you want to win everything. And I think that I'm not going to shy away from the fact that, that's what we demand, and I think if you don't have that expectation, then I don't think you should be playing for Liverpool Football Club, regardless of the season we had last year, regardless of potentially, bringing in a few more players, maybe not gelling, losing big players. For me, there's no excuse. This is Liverpool Football Club. So if you're telling me what we're going to win everything. But for me, when you're talking about a minimum, it has to be, top 4 Champions League. I think that's always the case with Liverpool. Can we have a good cup run? Am I sitting here right now with the squad that we've got, with having Champions League and all the other cups that we're in, a lot of games, with how thin we are at the moment? Are we going to go and win the title? I'm not too sure, if I'm being honest. Hand on heart. I think Arsenal looks strong again. I think Chelsea looks strong again. I think teams in and around us have strengthened. I actually think it's going to be quite a fascinating season this year. I mean, I know only it's game 1, but already you can see some shock results. So I think it might be more open than ever. But I would love to see us win some silverware and get into Champions League.
That was a clip from Expert Insight. To check out the whole show, simply download the Redmen Plus app or click the link in the description.